Okay, here we want to calculate the composite functions f composite g and g composite f, and then determine their domains. F of x is equal to 1 over x to the fourth plus 1, and g of x is equal to x to the negative 8. So, the first thing we want to find is we want to find f composite g of x. And we know that the definition is f of g of x. Now, what do we know about g of x? We know that it's equal to x to the negative 8. So this is going to become f of x to the negative 8. And then now, this is going to become the input for x in the function f of x. So therefore, this now becomes 1 over our input raised to the fourth plus 1. Well, that means we've got to plug in x to the negative 8 for x. So we end up getting 1 over x to the negative 32 plus 1. So now this is our answer here. But now if we want to find the domain of this function, we need to look at the denominator here. Okay, and that denominator that we have is 1, and then if we want to rewrite this without the negative exponent, this would be 1 over x to the 32, and then that's plus 1. So if we look at this denominator, okay, we can never let that equal 0. So we don't have to solve anything, we just need to know that you can't have a number that's divided by 0. So therefore, the domain of this function tells us that x such that x cannot equal 0. So therefore, it's that result. Okay? So that was part A. Okay, now let's take a look at part B. We want to find the definition g composite f of x. And so we know that that is g of f of x, or that becomes the input. So that becomes g of the function, which is 1 over x to the fourth plus 1. So now we got to plug this function into g and then raise it to the negative 8th power. So that becomes 1 over x to the fourth plus 1. So now if we go back to our exponent rules, if we want to make this a positive exponent and a fraction is being raised to a positive exponent, then if we want to make this a positive 8, then we take the reciprocal of what's inside. So now this becomes x to the fourth plus 1 over 1. And so therefore this becomes x to the fourth plus 1 to the 8th power. So therefore that represents our answer. So now in step number 3, then what would the domain of this function then be? Well, that means we can plug any numbers in. So that would mean x such that x is any or all real numbers. So x is all real numbers. So here's our solution for that, and then we have our domain, and then we have our next solution, and then the domain here is all real numbers.